Under Alaska's icy stars, Jake, a trucker with a heart full of scars, steered his trusty Peterbilt along the Dалтон highway, chasing a dream born in a Бойсе foster home. His 6-year-old daughter, Lili, was his world, but the road kept them apart. One dawn, a desperate cry from a frozen river stopped him cold. A pregnant wolf, drowning, her pack helpless. Jake didn't hesitate, plunging into danger, unaware his selfless act would bind their fates, but he never imagined what the wild would repay him with. Some bonds are written in blood, others in snow and sacrifice. In a land where silence howls louder than storms, mercy has a price. Buckle up. This tale of courage and mystery will leave you breathless, yearning for the truth. Man, look at little Jake, clutching that toy semi-truck like it's his lifeline. You can just tell this kid's got big dreams, probably picturing himself hauling freight across the country. Bet he's going to be a trucker someday, just like you were, Mike. Oh yeah, back in the day I was king of the road in my old Pitterbilt, crisscrossing the US from Seattle to Miami. The open highway, those endless sunsets over the Rockies, the greasy diner coffee at 3 a.m. Pure freedom. If my knees weren't shot, I'd still be out there chasing the horizon. Jake, sprawled on the rec room floor of the Sunny Hills Children's Home in Boise, Idaho, was lost in his own world, zooming his truck across the carpet. He didn't seem to hear the grown-ups chatting, but his ears perked up at trucker. A tiny grin flickered across his face, though he kept his eyes glued to his toy, pretending not to care. Years zipped by, and Jake's obsession with big rigs only grew stronger. Toy trucks weren't enough anymore. Whenever a semi roared past the orphanage on I-84, he'd drop everything, his homework, his basketball, and sprint to the window or the chain-link fence if he was outside. He'd stand there, frozen, staring as the truck vanished into the distance, his hazel eyes a mix of awe and longing. Most kids outgrow their childhood passions, but not Jake. His love for trucks was carved into his soul, and everyone at Sunny Hills noticed, especially the staff. Now, Sunny Hills wasn't your typical foster home. Sure, money was tight, when isn't it? But the people there were the real deal. The caregivers genuinely cared, treating the kids like family. One counselor, Sarah, saw how Jake lit up around anything with wheels. On her day off, she swung by a Target and picked up a shiny new toy semi-truck paid for out of her own pocket. When she handed it to Jake, his face was like a kid on Christmas morning. From then on, that truck was his shadow. He'd carry it everywhere, even trying to sneak it into bed, though the staff drew the line there. Technically, it was a shared toy, but the other kids didn't mind. They knew it meant the world to Jake, and besides, it left the Legos and action figures for them. Mike Thompson, the grizzled gym coach, took a special interest in Jake. Back in his trucking days, he'd logged millions of miles from the redwoods of California to the swamps of Louisiana. He saw himself in Jake's wide-eyed dreams. They'd spend hours in a quiet corner of the rec room, Mike spinning tales of midnight runs through the desert, dodging jackrabbits, and pulling into truck stops buzzing with life. Jake soaked it all up, his future behind the wheel feeling closer with every story. But Mike had a worry gnawing at him. Driving school wasn't cheap, and a foster kid like Jake wouldn't have a dime to his name. How could he make this dream real? Jake's 15th birthday at Sunny Hills Children's Home in Boise, Idaho, felt like any other day, until Mike Thompson, the gym coach with a heart as big as his old semi-truck, pulled him aside during a break. The rec room buzzed with kids playing foosball and swapping Pokemon cards, but Mike's grin was brighter than the neon Boise State Broncos poster on the wall. Jake could tell something was up. Mike had that look, like he was about to drop a bombshell, and Jake's stomach did a little flip, half excited, half nervous. "Hey, Jake, happy birthday, kid," Mike's voice boomed, warm as a summer day in the Idaho foothills. "You're practically a man now." Here's to a life full of adventure and making those dreams come true." "Thanks, Mike," Jake mumbled, his voice cracking like a gravel road under tires. He shuffled his sneakers, not used to the spotlight. Mike leaned in, his grey eyes twinkling with mischief. "So, about those dreams. You still set on being a trucker, right? Hauling freight across the country, living that highway life?" Jake's cheeks flushed, but he couldn't hide his grin. "Yeah, you know it. Ever since I was a kid with that Tonka truck. You gonna give me grief about it?" "Grief? Nah, kid." Mike chuckled, clapping Jake's shoulder. "I'd be proud as heck if you hit the road like I did. But here's the thing. I've been thinking. You're 15, old enough to start learning the ropes. I've got this beat-up Ford pickup, a 98 F-150 that's seen better days but still runs like a champ. How about I teach you to drive it?" Jake's jaw dropped, his heart racing like he'd just heard a semi blast its air horn. "You serious, Mike? Like, for real?" "Dead serious," Mike said, folding his arms with a proud nod. "It's not a Peterbilt, but it's a start. Get the hang of it, and you'll be ready for the big rigs in no time. Consider it your birthday present." "Man, Mike, that's... wow," Jake stammered, his voice thick with emotion. He wanted to hug the old coach, but settled for a shaky grin. Driving lessons from Mike. It was like winning the lottery. The idea had hit Mike the night before, and he kicked himself for not thinking of it sooner. Trucking school cost a fortune, $5,000, maybe more, and Jake, a foster kid, had no way to scrape that together. But Mike's old F-150 parked in his driveway next to his Boise duplex was perfect. It had a stick shift, a rattling tailgate, and a cassette player that only played Johnny Cash, but it was roadworthy. Teaching Jake to drive could give him a head start, maybe even help him land a learner's permit early with some paperwork magic. Mike remembered his own first time behind the wheel, the thrill of the engine rumbling under his hands, and he wanted Jake to feel that same rush. Jake, still reeling, couldn't believe his luck. Mike wasn't just some coach, he was a legend, a guy who'd hauled lumber through Montana blizzards and delivered produce to diners in Alabama. The thought of learning from him in a real truck made Jake's dreams feel less like a kid's fantasy and more like a plan. But a tiny voice in his head whispered doubts. Him? A foster kid? Driving at 15? Was that even legal? Mike wouldn't joke about something this big, but it felt too good to be true. "Mike, isn't 15 kinda young?" Jake asked, scratching his neck. "Like, won't we get in trouble?" "Don't you worry about that," Mike said with a wink. "We'll keep it on private land, maybe my buddy's ranch outside Nampa. You'll be fine. Besides, you've got the heart for it. I can see it." Jake's doubts melted away, replaced by a fire in his chest. He could almost feel the steering wheel in his hands, hear the growl of the engine. This was his shot, his first real step toward the open road. Mike believed in him, and that was enough to make him believe in himself. Every Sunday, when the Sunny Hills Children's Home in Boise, Idaho quieted down, Jake hopped into Mike Thompson's faded red Ford F-150. The ranch outside Nampa smelled of sagebrush and possibility. Mike sat shotgun, his weathered hands ready to grab the wheel if needed, guiding Jake through the basics. Clutch, gas, brake. "Ease into it, kid," he'd say, as Jake stalled the truck for the third time, laughing through his nerves. But Jake was a natural. The stick shift, the rumble of the engine. It felt like he was born for it. Each lesson brought him closer to his dream of hauling freight across America's highways. Mike never let up, coaching Jake like a drill sergeant with heart. By the time Jake turned 18 and aged out of Sunny Hills, he was a pro behind the wheel. He aced his driver's test at the Boise DMV, clutching his shiny new license like a ticket to freedom. It only covered cars, not semis, but it was a start. Trucking school was still too pricey. $5,000 was a pipe dream, so Jake took a job driving for a local Uber outfit. Zipping around Boise, ferrying college kids and tourists, he saved every tip, dreaming of the day he'd upgrade to a big rig. Then life threw a curveball. Skipping college meant Jake was eligible for the draft, and before he knew it, he was at Fort Benning, Georgia, in basic training. The Army wasn't what he'd planned, but luck was on his side. No hazing, no nonsense, just good officers who saw his knack for vehicles. They trained him to drive military transport trucks, heavy beasts that made his old F-150 look like a toy. By the time his year-long service ended, Jake had the skills to handle anything on wheels. He left the Army with a grin, ready to chase his childhood dream. Back in Boise, reality hit hard. Jake scoured job boards on Indeed and pestered trucking companies from Idaho to Oregon, but every interview ended the same way. No experience, no job. One grizzled manager at a freight depot in Twin Falls didn't sugarcoat it, leaning back in his creaky office chair, a Pepsi can sweating on his desk. "Look, kid, you seem eager, but driving a semi cross-country, that's not for greenhorns," the manager said, scratching his beard. "Why don't you settle down, get married, start a family?" "But I can do the job," Jake shot back, his voice tight with frustration. "I've wanted this since I was a kid, sir. It's all I've ever dreamed of." "Dreams, huh?" the manager snorted. "Watched too many trucking movies, didn't you? Look, this ain't just cruising through pretty landscapes. It's long hauls, no sleep, and a ton of responsibility. Most guys your age burn out fast. And don't get me started on girlfriends. They'll ditch you after your first month-long run. Get some real-world experience. Maybe in 10 years we'll talk." "How am I supposed to get experience if no one gives me a chance?" Jake pleaded, his hands clenched. The manager just shrugged and Jake stormed out, slamming the door behind him. He wasn't giving up, but the rejection stung. Every no felt like a mile further from his dream, yet he kept pushing, determined to prove them wrong. Jake wasn't one to quit, but the endless rejections from trucking companies were wearing him down. Every no from Boise to Portland felt like a punch to the gut. He'd spend mornings scrolling Craigslist and Indeed, afternoons calling freight outfits, and evenings combing through classifieds at the corner store near his tiny Boise apartment. He'd buy stacks of newspapers, the Idaho Statesman, local weeklies, hoping for a lead. Sometimes he'd hit the same store twice, desperate for a fresh edition. His dream of driving a semi across America's highways felt further away than ever, and the loneliness of life after the orphanage didn't help. One day, as he grabbed a pile of papers, the cashier, a girl about his age named Emily, raised an eyebrow. Her name tag glinted under the fluorescent lights, and her freckled face held a mix of curiosity and amusement. "Dude, you really read all these?" she asked, ringing up his stack with a smirk. "Nah, not really," Jake admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "Just hunting for trucking jobs. Been at it forever, and I'm striking out big time." He didn't know why he spilled his guts, but something about Emily's easy smile made it feel safe. He told her about his childhood at Sunny Hills, his obsession with big rigs, the Army trucks he drove, and the brick wall of no experience he kept hitting. She listened, leaning on the counter, her hazel eyes locked on him. For the first time in months, Jake felt heard. He hadn't realized how much he needed to vent. His old foster home friends had scattered, and new ones were hard to come by. "That's wild," Emily said when he finished. "Most guys your age want to be like coders or influencers, but a trucker, that's legit. You've got to make it happen. It'd be a shame if you didn't." "Yeah, well, the world's not exactly rooting for me," Jake sighed, shoving his hands in his hoodie pockets. "Oh, come on," she said, her tone suddenly firm. "Life's tough, but it's fair in the end. You keep at it, and you'll get your shot. I believe in you, so you better believe in yourself." "Thanks," Jake said, managing a small smile. Her words lit a spark in him, like a match in the dark. From then on, Emily asked about his job hunt every time he stopped by. Her faith pushed him to double down. More calls, more applications, even cold emailing dispatchers at places like Swift Transportation. He didn't want to let her down, or himself. Their chats started drifting beyond jobs. Jake shared stories about Mike's wild trucking tales and his army days. Emily opened up about her life, parents who couldn't afford college, her gig at the store, and how she read paperbacks from the rack to pass the time. "This job's chill," she said one day, flipping through a worn copy of The Outsiders. "I read Save Up, maybe take night classes someday. Plus I meet cool people, like you." "Me? Cool?" Jake laughed, blushing. "You're the cool one, Emily. Never met anyone like you." She grinned, and their talks grew longer, sometimes stretching until a customer interrupted. Soon, Jake was walking her home after her shift, their laughter echoing down Boise's quiet streets. He was falling for her, and it scared him, but it felt right. Jake and Emily's chats at the Boise 7-Eleven turned into a daily ritual, their conversations stretching longer with each visit. What started as job hunt updates became stories about their lives, Jake's army days, Emily's dreams of taking psychology classes at the College of Western Idaho. They'd talk until a customer barged in for a Slurpee, and soon Jake was walking her home after her shift, their footsteps crunching on Boise's frost-kissed sidewalks. Under the glow of streetlights, Jake felt something new, a warmth that made his trucking dream seem even brighter with her by his side. One evening, after a month of these walks, Jake's heart pounded as he worked up the nerve to ask her out. They stood outside her apartment, the chilly Idaho air nipping at their noses. "So, Emily, want to grab dinner sometime? Like a real date?" Jake asked, rubbing the back of his neck, his breath visible in the cold. "Took you long enough." Emily laughed, her eyes sparkling. "I was going to ask you to hike Table Rock next week if you didn't step up." "Yes, Jake, I'd love to." "Phew, dodged that bullet?" Jake grinned, relief washing over him. "Would have been embarrassing if you beat me to it." "Better than missing out on this," she teased, nudging his arm. Their first date at a cozy diner off I-84 was perfect. Burgers, fries, and endless laughs over a jukebox playing Springsteen. Months flew by, and Jake knew he wanted Emily in his life forever, but meeting her parents terrified him. He was a foster kid, an Uber driver with no college degree, chasing a pipe dream of trucking. What would they think? Emily's folks, Tom and Linda, lived in a modest Meridian ranch house, the kind with a pickup in the driveway and a flagpole out front. Jake's stomach churned as he sat at their dinner table, picking at Linda's famous meatloaf. He barely spoke, avoiding eye contact, convinced they'd see right through him. "Jake, you okay?" "You're quieter than a mouse in a library," Tom said, his voice kind but direct, as he pulled Jake aside after dinner while Emily and Linda cleared the table. Do you think I'm good enough for Emily?" Jake blurted, his face hot. "I mean, I'm nobody special. No family, no big career." Tom raised an eyebrow, then chuckled. "You kidding? Emily's crazy about you. She talks about you non-stop, how you're kind, driven, you love her, don't you? That's what matters. The rest? Just noise." Jake's shoulders relaxed, Tom's words sinking in. Over time, visits to Meridian felt like coming home. Emily's parents treated him like a son, and his doubts faded. One starry night, under Boise's big sky, Jake proposed with a simple ring he'd saved months for. Emily said yes, tears in her eyes, and her parents threw a backyard barbecue to celebrate, complete with sparklers and country tunes. Their wedding was small but joyful, held at a local park with picnic tables and a rented tent. Friends, foster home staff, and Mike Thompson cheered as Jake and Emily danced to Sweet Home Alabama. Jake's heart was full. He'd found love, and his trucking dream still burned bright. Life was looking up for Jake and Emily in their cozy Boise apartment. After months of dead-end job searches, Jake finally scored a gig with a small trucking company, Idaho Freight Solutions. The owner, a young go-getter named Ryan, didn't care about Jake's lack of experience. He saw his grit and gave him a shot. Jake was over the moon, ready to haul loads across the Northwest. Around the same time, Emily shared even bigger news over a pizza dinner at their favorite joint, Guido's. She was pregnant. Their laughter filled the booth, but Jake's joy came with a knot of worry. "Babe, this trucking job, it's my dream. But with a baby coming, should I stick with Uber?" Jake asked, his fork hovering over a slice. "These hauls could keep me gone for weeks, maybe a month. You'd be alone with the kiddo." Emily tilted her head, her hazel eyes steady. "Why would you give it up? You fought so hard for this, Jake. I'm not alone. Mom and Dad are just in Meridian. We've got this. But a month's a long time." Jake pressed, his voice tight. "What if you need me and I'm stuck in Montana?" "We'll manage," Emily said, squeezing his hand. "My folks raised me without much and we turned out fine. Plus, this job pays way better, right? With a baby, that's huge. Think of the cute little onesies we can buy." Jake cracked a smile, but doubt lingered. "You sure? I don't want you stuck handling everything." "Jake, listen," Emily said, her tone firm but warm. "I knew who I was marrying, a guy with big dreams and a bigger heart. I've believed in you since that 7-Eleven counter. Don't you dare back out now. Our kid's going to be proud of their trucker dad." "Okay, you win." Jake chuckled, her confidence infectious. "But I'm holding you to that onesie budget." The next few months were a whirlwind. Jake's boss adjusted his schedule so he'd be home for the birth, letting him take shorter runs to Spokane and back. Jake and Emily dove into nesting mode, scouring Walmart for cribs and painting a nursery in soft blue, arguing over names, Ethan or Noah. They'd stroll through Ann Morrison Park, dreaming about their little family, Jake's hand resting on Emily's growing belly. Those moments felt like stolen treasure, every second precious. But one night, weeks before her due date, Jake's phone buzzed at 2 a.m. He fumbled for it, heart racing when he saw Emily's name. She'd gone to St. Luke's Medical Center for a checkup, insisting he stay home and rest. "Jake, get here quick!" Emily's voice trembled through the line. "I think I'm in labor." "What? It's too early." Jake's mind spun, but his body was already moving, yanking on jeans and boots. "I'm coming! Hang on!" He sped through Boise's empty streets, the city a blur of neon and shadows. His hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white as panic clawed at him. Early labor wasn't good. Something was wrong. He pushed the gas, praying he'd make it to St. Luke's in time, terrified for Emily and their unborn child. Jake's pickup screeched into the parking lot of St. Luke's downtown in Boise, his heart hammering like a jackhammer. Emily's call, her shaky voice saying she was in labor weeks early, replayed in his mind. The hospital's glass doors loomed under harsh fluorescent lights, and Jake sprinted inside, his boots slipping on the polished floor. The emergency room was eerily quiet, not the chaos he'd braced for, no rushing nurses, no blaring alarms. His stomach churned. Quiet meant something was wrong, didn't it? He demanded answers at the desk, his voice cracking with panic. "My wife, Emily Carter, she's in labor. Where is she?" Jake pleaded, gripping the counter. A nurse, calm and clipped, glanced up from her computer. "She's in delivery. You can't go in. Wait here and the doctor will update you." "But it's too early. Is she okay?" Jake's voice rose, desperation spilling out. "Please, sir, sit down. We'll let you know," the nurse said, her tone final before turning back to her screen. Jake collapsed onto a hard plastic chair in the waiting area, the sterile smell of antiseptic burning his nose. Minutes dragged into hours. He stared at the floor, counting tiles to keep from losing it. 34, 35, 36. Nurses passed by, ignoring his pleading looks. Wait, they'd say if they said anything. His mind raced with worst-case scenarios, Emily in pain, the baby in danger. He was helpless, a trucker who could navigate I-84 blind, but couldn't do a thing for his wife. The clock ticked past 4 a.m., then 5, then 6. Dawn crept through the windows, painting the walls pale gold. Finally a doctor emerged, his scrubs stained, his face etched with exhaustion. He carried a tiny bundle wrapped in a pink blanket. Jake shot to his feet, his legs shaky. "You're Emily Carter's husband?" the doctor asked, his voice heavy. "Yeah, Jake. That's me. What's going on?" "The baby?" Jake's eyes flicked to the bundle, his throat tight. "This is your daughter," the doctor said, gently handing over the baby. "She's a bit premature, so she'll need to stay in the NICU for a while. Healthy, though. Congratulations." Jake cradled the tiny girl, her face scrunched and perfect, but his relief was cut short. The doctor's eyes dropped, avoiding his. "And Emily?" Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper, dread pooling in his gut. The doctor hesitated, then met Jake's gaze, sorrow raw in his expression. "I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. There were complications, unexpected bleeding. Emily didn't make it." The words hit like a freight train. Jake's knees buckled, but he clutched his daughter, afraid he'd drop her. Emily, his Emily, gone. It couldn't be real. The doctor's voice faded, drowned by a roar in Jake's ears. He stumbled to his truck, drove home in a daze, the baby still in the hospital. He called Emily's parents, Tom and Linda, choking out the news. Then he broke. Alone in their apartment, surrounded by the nursery they'd painted, Jake didn't cry. He howled, raw and guttural like a wounded animal. Everything he'd built, everything he loved, was gone in a heartbeat. Jake's world shattered after Emily's death. Back in their Boise apartment, surrounded by her Boise State sweatshirt and half-painted nursery, he unraveled. The hospital kept their newborn daughter in the NICU, but Jake couldn't face her. Her tiny face was too much like Emily's. He'd always avoided alcohol, hating its bitter sting, but a memory surfaced. His 18th birthday, when Mike Thompson gifted him a bottle of Jack Daniels, a welcome to adulthood present. Jake had stashed it in a cupboard, untouched, repulsed by the smell. Now he dug it out, poured a glass and choked it down. It burned like fire, but it dulled the pain. One glass became 2, then a bottle a day. Jake lost track of time, ignoring his phone as it buzzed with calls from St. Luke's and Emily's parents, Tom and Linda. His apartment turned into a war zone. Empty whiskey bottles, pizza boxes, unwashed clothes. He didn't answer the door, didn't shower, didn't care. The grief was a black hole swallowing him whole. He wasn't a drinker, never had been, but now he couldn't stop, buying cheap liquor from the corner 7-Eleven, drowning the image of Emily's smile. A week later, Tom showed up, worried after days of silence. He found the door ajar, the apartment reeking of booze and despair. Jake was slumped on the couch, barely conscious, a half-empty bottle of Jim Beam in his hand. Tom's heart sank, but he didn't hesitate. He cleared the mess, flushed the remaining liquor, and ran to a nearby Walgreens for Gatorade and Advil. He sat by Jake, waiting for him to come to, knowing he couldn't be left alone. Hours later, Jake stirred, his head pounding, his eyes glassy. He saw Tom and groaned, shame creeping in. "Gimme the whiskey, Tom," Jake mumbled, his voice rough. "You don't drink, Jake. Never have," Tom said, his tone gentle but firm. "This stuff'll kill you, son, you know that." What's the point of living? Jake snapped, his voice breaking. Emily's gone. I got nothing left. Tom leaned forward, his eyes steady. You've got a daughter, Jake. A little girl who's already lost her mum. You want her to lose her dad too? You think Linda and I aren't hurting? We lost our only child, but we're here, fighting through it. Jake's gaze dropped, Tom's words cutting through the fog. He thought of Emily, how she'd believed in him, how she'd hate seeing him like this. Guilt twisted his gut. Emily wouldn't want this for you, Tom continued, softer now. She'd want you raising that girl, working your job, finding a way forward, and someday when you're ready, finding happiness again. I know it's hard, but you're not alone. You've got us, always. I don't know if I can do it, Jake whispered, tears welling. I'm so sorry, Tom, am I messed up? We all mess up, Tom said, resting a hand on his shoulder. But you're family. We'll get through this. Start with your daughter. She needs you. Jake nodded, the weight of his new reality settling in. He thought of the baby, still nameless, waiting in the hospital. Maybe he could try for her, for Emily. With Tom's tough love, Jake pulled himself out of the dark. He named his daughter Lili, a nod to Emily's favorite flower, and brought her home from St. Luke's NICU to their Бойсе apartment. The first year was brutal. Every glance at Lily's hazel eyes, so like Emily's, stabbed his heart. But Tom and Linda stepped up, babysitting in their Meridian home, while Jake returned to his trucking job with Idaho Freight Solutions. He'd haul loads to Spokane or Portland, come back to Lily's gummy smiles, and slowly the pain softened. Lili became his anchor, her giggles a reminder of Emily's light. As years passed, Jake's love for Lili grew fiercer. By age 6, she was a spitfire, curly hair, boundless energy, and a knack for drawing trucks just like her dad's. Jake cherished their time together, building forts out of Costco boxes or watching Paw Patrol on the couch. But trucking meant long stretches away, and each goodbye hurt more. Tom and Linda were saints, hosting Lili for weeks, but Jake felt like he was missing her childhood, 1 mile at a time. A new job loomed, a long haul to Fairbanks, Alaska, through icy Yukon roads. It'd be his longest trip yet, 3 months gone, but the pay was huge and it came with a month off after. Jake hesitated, pacing his apartment, Lily's crayons scattered across the coffee table. He called Tom, needing reassurance. Tom, this Alaska run's got me stressed, Jake said, rubbing his temples. Lily's only 6. 3 months is forever to a kid. What if she forgets me? Relax, Jake. Tom's voice was steady, like a warm Idaho campfire. Lily's used to your job. She brags about her trucker dad at school. It's just a bit longer than usual. Linda and I love having her. She keeps us young. But she's growing so fast, Jake countered, glancing at a photo of Lili in her Boise State cap. I'm missing too much. She won't forget you, Tom said firmly. We'll FaceTime you every night, show her your route on a map. She'll be fine, and you'll be back before you know it. Jake sighed, unconvinced, but out of arguments. Duty called and he packed his duffel, kissing Lily's forehead as she slept. Driving out of Boise in February's bitter cold, he felt a pang of guilt. The road stretched north, past Montana's snow-dusted peaks, into Canada's frozen wilds. By the time he hit Alaska, spring was teasing the landscape, slushy snow, budding pines, and rivers cracking their icy shells. Jake's rig rumbled along the Dалтон highway, the aurora borealis dancing overhead, and despite his worries, the road's magic stirred him. This was why he'd chased trucking, the vast, untamed beauty of America, the hum of the engine, the sense of freedom. Yet every mile north pulled him further from Lili, and that ache grew heavier. He wanted to be her dad, not a voice on a screen. Maybe it was time to rethink this life, find a way to stay closer to home, to the little girl who needed him most. Jake's rig roared along Alaska's Dallton Highway, the spring thaw turning the road to slush. The aurora borealis shimmered above, but his thoughts were on Lili, back in Boise, with Tom and Linda. Then, a flicker on a frozen river caught his eye. He pulled over, squinting through the dawn light. Something was struggling in the water, trapped by thinning ice. Thinking it was a dog, Jake grabbed his jacket and bolted toward the bank, his boots crunching snow. But as he got closer, he froze. It wasn't a dog. It was a wolf, thrashing weakly, its pack watching helplessly from the shore. The wolves turned their amber eyes on Jake, but he felt no fear. Their gazes seemed to plead, trusting him to help. Without hesitating, he stripped off his heavy coat and crawled onto the ice, heart pounding. The wolf, a female, didn't snap or snarl. She was too weak. The ice groaned under Jake's weight, cracking as he reached her. Grabbing her scruff, he pulled, muscles burning, water soaking his jeans. Each inch was a battle, the ice splintering, but he dragged her towards safety, collapsing on the bank, breathless, as the pack circled silently. Jake shivered, soaked and aching, but elation hit him. The wolf was pregnant, her swollen belly clear now. He hadn't saved one life, but a whole litter. The pack vanished into the pines, the mother wolf glancing back, as if memorizing his face. Jake lay there, too drained to move, until a pickup's rumble snapped him awake. "Man, you're nuts, risking your neck for a wolf," a gruff voice called. A burly man, probably a local ranger, hauled Jake up, wrapping him in a blanket. "Come on, you'll freeze out here." "Can't. My rig," Jake croaked, teeth chattering. "We'll tow it to town, don't worry," another man said, likely a village elder. "You're not dying on us, hero." They bundled Jake into a beat-up Chevy, driving to a small Alaskan village. In a warm cabin, they gave him hot coffee laced with honey, dry clothes, and a cot. Jake's body screamed, every muscle ached, and a fever was creeping in. He drifted off, Lily's face in his mind, terrified he'd never see her again. He woke in a clinic, IV in his arm, a young nurse named Kate hovering nearby. Her dark hair was pulled back, her eyes kind but no nonsense. "You're lucky," Kate said, checking his chart. "Pneumonia from that ice bath. Been out 2 days. I'm Kate, your nurse. You're in the village clinic staying till you're better." "My daughter? My job?" Jake rasped, coughing. "Already called your boss and your in-laws," Kate said, handing him a phone. "Focus on healing. That was some stunt you pulled." Jake managed a weak smile. Kate's brisk care, bringing soup, joking about his wolf whisperer status, kept him grounded. Over days they talked. Jake shared his story. Lili, Emily's death, his trucking life. Kate listened, her presence a quiet comfort, stirring something in Jake he hadn't felt since Emily, a spark of hope in the Alaskan wild. Jake's fever broke after 3 weeks in Coldfoot's clinic, thanks to Kate's relentless care. Antibiotics, hearty moose stew, and her sharp wit pulling him through. Lying in the creaky cot, he'd watch her bustle around, her dark hair escaping its ponytail, and feel a flicker of something new. They talked for hours. Jake spilled his heart about Lili, Emily's death, and his trucking dreams. Kate shared her own scars. A fiancé who bailed when she couldn't have kids, pushing her to become a nurse in this remote Alaskan village. His loss, Jake said, and her smile warmed the chilly room. "You're tougher than you look," Kate teased one day, handing him a mug of Folgers. "Not every guy wrestles wolves and lives to tell." "Had to," Jake chuckled. "Couldn't let Lili down, she's my everything." When Jake was strong enough, he finished his haul to Fairbanks, the Dallton Highway now a muddy slog. Back in Boise, he quit Idaho Freight Solutions, packed his and Lily's belongings, and bought plane tickets to Fairbanks. He was nervous. Would Lili, now 6 except Kate. Would she love Alaska's wild beauty? At Boise Airport, Lili clutched her stuffed moose, her hazel eyes wide. "Daddy, are we going to live with bears?" she asked, swinging her backpack. "Maybe a few, kiddo," Jake said, ruffling her curls. "But we'll have Kate, too. She's awesome, like your Paw Patrol pals." Landing in Fairbanks, they took a rattling bushplane to Coldfoot. The village was a postcard. Log cabins, towering pines, and mountains kissed by summer sun. Lili squealed, spotting a moose, and Jake's heart lifted. Kate met them at the airstrip, her grin as bright as the midnight sun. To Jake's relief, Lili took to her instantly, chattering about her drawings and begging to explore. Kate knelt, offering a tiny carved wolf figurine. "For you, Lili," Kate said. "Your dad's a wolf-saving hero, you know." "Cool," Lili beamed, hugging Kate's legs. They settled into a small cabin, its walls lined with second-hand books and a wood stove that crackled warmly. Jake found work as a heavy equipment operator, trading his semi for a bulldozer, the skills coming easy after years of driving rigs. Coldfoot's quiet suited him, no neon, just stars and silence. Lili thrived, chasing fireflies and picking blueberries with Kate, who slipped into a motherly role with ease. Jake watched them amazed. Kate, who'd longed for a child, and Lili, who'd never known a mom, fit like puzzle pieces. One night, under Alaska's endless twilight, Jake sat with Kate on the porch, Lili asleep inside. He felt peace, a feeling he'd thought died with Emily. Kate's hand brushed his, and he didn't pull away. "Think we're going to be okay here?" he asked, voice low. "Better than okay," Kate said, her eyes soft. "We're home, Jake." He nodded, the weight of his old dreams, highways, solitude, fading. Coldfoot, Lili, Kate. This was his road now, winding through love and second chances, far from Boise, but closer to his heart than ever. Life in Coldfoot, Alaska, was idyllic for Jake, Kate, and Lili. Their cabin near the community hall hummed with warmth, Lili's truck drawings taped to the fridge, Kate's nursing books stacked by the wood stove. Jake loved his bulldozer job, the Alaskan quieter balm after Boise's bustle. One night under a star-drenched sky, he stepped onto the porch and froze. 5 wolf pups sat in a neat row, their mother, the one he'd saved, looming proudly behind. Her amber eyes met his, a silent thank you before they melted into the forest. Jake grinned, whispering, "You're welcome," to the night. Weeks later, that peace shattered. As Jake, Kate, and Lili slept, a crash jolted them awake. 5 men, reeking of sweat and desperation, burst into the cabin, escaped convicts, their eyes wild. Jake's heart raced. Coldfoot's remoteness made such dangers rare but real. "Food, clothes, cash, now!" the leader barked, a knife glinting in his hand. "Cooperate and your girls stay safe." His cronies snickered, their intent clear. They wouldn't stop at robbery. Jake's mind raced. He had to protect Kate and Lili, asleep upstairs. "Okay, calm down," Jake said, hands raised. "Lili, Kate, grab the cash box from the bedroom, please." There was no cash box. It was a ruse to get them to safety. The leader's eyes narrowed. "No way," he growled. "They'll call the cops." "No signal out here, man," Jake said coolly. "You'll hear if they try anything. Let's make this quick." The leader grunted, nodding reluctantly. As Kate and Lili hurried upstairs, Jake lunged for a kitchen knife, blocking the stairway. The fight was brutal. Jake slashed and dodged, blood trickling from a cut on his arm, but 5 against 1 was hopeless. He fought to buy time, hoping Kate and Lili would escape out the back. His strength waned, the convicts' blows landing harder, their knives flashing closer. Then shadows flickered. A low growl rumbled through the cabin. In a blur, the wolf pack, led by the mother Jake had saved, surged through the open door. Snarls and screams filled the air as the wolves tore into the convicts, ending the threat in seconds. The pack vanished as swiftly as they'd come, leaving Jake bloodied but alive. The mother wolf lingered, her gaze steady, then slipped into the night. "Thank you," Jake whispered, tears mixing with blood. "You saved my family." Kate and Lily rushed down, unharmed, clinging to him. The Alaska State Troopers arrived, skeptical but convinced by the scene, mangled bodies, claw marks, and local lore about grateful wolves. "Happens up here," one trooper said, noting similar tales. The case closed quickly, no questions lingering. Jake's gratitude deepened. Months later, he proposed to Kate under Coldfoot's aurora, Lily cheering as Kate said yes. Their wedding was a village affair, potluck, caribou chili, fiddles, and dancing under the stars. Tom and Linda flew in, embracing Kate as family. Jake felt Emily's blessing in the wind, his heart full. The wolves never returned, but their bond with Jake, a man who'd risked all for them, lived on in Coldfoot's whispers. Jake's life in Coldfoot, Alaska, was a dream he never dared imagine. Kate by his side, Lily thriving, and their new son, Tommy, born strong, named after Tom. The village buzzed with summer life. Lily, now 8, teaching Tommy to toddle near their cabin's blueberry patch. One evening, as Kate cooked caribou chili, a knock rattled the door. Jake opened it and froze. Mike Thompson, his old coach from Sunny Hills, stood there, grayer and frailer but with the same spark in his eyes. "Well, look at you, Jake," Mike rasped, pulling him into a bear hug. "My trucker kid, all grown up." "Mike! How'd you find us?" Jake laughed, ushering him inside, heart swelling. "Heard you ditched the rigs for Alaska," Mike said, settling at the table with a mug of Folgers. "Ran into Tom in Boise. Said you're a family man now." Kate served dinner, and Mike charmed Lily with tales of Jake's first drives in that old F-150. They talked late, Jake sharing his wolf rescue, the convict attack, and finding Kate. Mike's eyes gleamed with pride. "You still chasing that road, Jake?" Mike asked, voice low. "No regrets about leaving trucking?" Jake glanced at Kate, Lily, and Tommy, their laughter filling the cabin. "None, Mike. The highway was my start, but this, family, home, this is my road now." Mike handed Jake a faded photo, young Jake behind the F-150's wheel, grinning wide. "Keep it," he said. "Reminds you where you began." Mike stayed a few days, fixing fences with Jake and telling Tommy trucker stories. When he left, Jake felt a pang, sensing it was goodbye. Months later, a letter arrived from Boise. Mike was gone, his heart giving out, but he'd written of his pride in Jake. Enclosed was another photo, Mike in his old Peterbilt, eyes alight. Jake teared up, showing it to Kate and the kids. They drove to Boise in their Chevy Silverado, Lily and Tommy singing along to Johnny Cash to visit Mike's grave. At the hospital where Mike died, Jake thanked him silently, feeling his mentor's spirit. Back in Coldfoot, life rolled on. Lily aced school, Tommy grew, and Jake and Kate planned a bigger cabin. Sometimes Jake pulled out those photos, his F-150, Mike's Peterbilt, and told the kids about chasing dreams, how they can lead to unexpected places. Under Coldfoot's starry nights, Jake often thought of the wolf mother. He hadn't seen her since the attack, but her gratitude lingered, a wild thread in his story. Life wasn't perfect. Bills piled up, winters were harsh, but with Kate's hand in his, Lily's hugs and Tommy's giggles, Jake knew he'd built something real. From a foster kid with a Tonka truck to a father in Alaska's heart, his road was paved with love, loss, and miracles. As stars twinkled, he smiled, ready for whatever the next mile brought. Certain Emily and Mike were watching, proud of the man he'd become.